Roman Reacts. We are here today to watch another video from Wizards and Warriors. This is the next part in our long series of the Warhammer Horus Heresy, and we're going to be diving on in, seeing what this is all about, and learn some more about what battles took place, what treachery was enacted, and this one's a bit of a big one since it involves the Dropsite Massacre, which it'll make sense when you watch it. So without further ado, the reason I know is because I was watching the other guy's video, which I do have on the channel. I watched from his perspective, but now it's done differently. So I have no idea what to expect from this. So without further ado, let's just get into it, okay? Yeah, okay. So I am really trying to prepare myself for this because no doubt with what we've witnessed in the past videos, this may hit hard. So here we go.
The Horus Heresy had started. The traitors, after a large setback, were awaiting the Imperium's reaction. Soon it would be known if the preparations of chaos were enough. A massive army was gathering to crush the rebellion before it could spread. On the planet Isstvan 5, everything would be decided. Welcome to our series on Warhammer 40k and the Horus Heresy, explaining the origins of the Imperium and chaos. In this 5th video, we will explore the Imperium's reaction to the Horus Heresy and the opening stage of the war. There's only one war large enough to rival what the Horus Heresy would become, and you'll find it in the sponsor of this video, Nexus War. It's a futuristic strategy game where your job is to collect powerful heroes, build your civilization, and win the huge ongoing wars. You'll take heroes from the 4 races of the galaxy, humans, Isans, Aukus, and Thayers, who you'll level up to lead your armies in battle. In fact, you can get Zafar, a seriously powerful hero, for free, just by logging in for 7 days as a new player. What is your goal? To claim the Infinity Throne and achieve ultimate glory, not unlike the goal of Horus himself. It's also multiplayer, allowing you to ally with millions of players all over.
The thing about those, I wish the graphics from the trailer matched the actual gameplay. I wish they actually would do that.
Over the galaxy to enact team strategies and fight together in real-time battles. For example, face the Siege of Aeons, a 30 versus 30 alliance battle requiring skill and teamwork. Or head out to explore the open world to find new powers to employ amid the ruins, treasures, and foes that await you on the massive and mysterious map. You'll also be building up your personal city to a galactic megafortress and recruiting and training heroes and mechs to battle your enemies. Download Nexus War for free via our link in the description and use code NWHeroPack to get $100 in free items. But that's only for the first 100 people to use it, so get in there quick. In 005 M31, on the eve of the Isstvan 3 campaign, where loyalists were to be purged, the War Master devised a scheme to thin out the forces that opposed him. To that end, he sent as many legions to the outer regions of the galaxy as he could. The Ultramarines were to fortify their home region and await aid from the Wordbearers, being told a massive Orc army was headed there. This army did not exist, for it was a mere fabrication of Horus. The Blood Angels were sent to Cygnus Prime to combat unknown Xenos, but only demons awaited there for the loyalist Space Marines. The last legion that Horus managed to send away from the conflict were the Dark Angels. They were sent to combat the human Xeno Confederation called the Gordian League, a campaign that would last for just over a year. Even with so many loyalist forces removed, the balance of power still wasn't in Horus's favor. An additional ally would be helpful. Fulgrim, one of the corrupted Primarchs, was convinced that he could convince Ferrus Manus and his Legion of Iron Hands to betray the Emperor. To achieve that, he travelled to meet his dear friend and brother while the purge on Isstvan 3 was happening. The two spoke in private. Contrary to Fulgrim's anticipation, Ferrus declined to join Horus and called out his madness. The two Primarchs engaged in a short duel, which Fulgrim won, but couldn't bring himself to kill his brother. While Ferrus Manus was unconscious, Fulgrim retreated to his spaceship and bombarded the Iron Hand's fleet, crippling its combat effectiveness. Ferrus Manus was the second, after Nathaniel Garrow, to send news of Horus's treachery to Terra. Now the Imperium knew beyond any doubt that the War Master was in open rebellion. A new leader of the army was needed. Rogal Dorn was named Lord Commander of the Imperium. He decided to bring a swift end to the Horus Heresy. A giant army was sent to the Isstvan system. 7 legions in total were deployed directly to Isstvan, not bothering to regroup beforehand. Meanwhile, on Mars, the Mechanicum, who swore allegiance to Horus during the war with the Oretian technocracy, started a revolt called the Schism of Mars. 2 forces battled there: those loyal to the Emperor, the Martian Mechanicum, that would eventually transform into Adeptus Mechanicus, and those loyal to Horus, the New Mechanicum, soon to be known as the Dark Mechanicum. These forces were similar in size. However, the traitors had a clear advantage due to the influence of chaos. The Scrap Code was a virus of chaos origin that caused mass malfunction of machines, production facilities, and communication devices. To make matters worse, the traitors broke every taboo in the conflict, be it biological or nuclear weapons, using the full arsenal of their technology. When the first outside help arrived, led by the Imperial Fist's second-in-command, Captain Sigismund, the battle was almost over. Sigismund decided to evacuate the Forge city he landed in with as much equipment as possible, leaving the rest of the scattered resistance to die. With such a threat so close to Terra, Rogal Dorn decided to split his own legion in 2. Most of the Space Marines, the flagship Phalanx, and he himself stayed in the solar system, blockading Mars and fortifying all other parts of the solar system, while the rest of the Imperial Fist's fleet was sent to fortify the strategic Thal system. Still, there were some other loyalist successes. The Dark Angels, despite being pinned down, managed to free a small force led by their Primarch, Lionel Johnson. This unanticipated force swiftly captured Diamat, a traitor forge world full of siege weapons. In the orbit of Diamat, Leon met Perturabo and the Legion of Iron Warriors, who were on their way to Isstvan. Leon gave away the newly acquired weapons to crush Horus while he returned to his legion. Meanwhile, the traitors were fortifying.
I think Perturabo tricked Lionel Johnson, personally. He tricked him to get him those weapons.
Isstvan V. On the Urgal Plateau, an old pre-imperial fortress was renovated. Surface-to-orbit batteries were built, anti-air missiles were set up, trenches were dug, walls were repaired and expanded with bulwarks and redoubts, and void shields capable of blocking orbital bombardments were installed. This fortress was guarded by 4 battered legions: the Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, Death Guard, and World Eaters, 200,000 Space Marines in total, supported by over 1 million traitor Imperial army and multiple Titans. In the following year, 006 M31, the Loyalists arrived. The first were the Salamanders, under the command of Vulcan, followed by the Raven Guard, under the command of Corvus Corax, and the Iron Hands, under the command of Ferrus Manus, although his legion did not come in full strength, due to damage many of his ships had sustained. All in all, the Loyalist expedition consisted of over 250,000 Space Marines, bolstered by thousands of armoured vehicles. The remaining 4 fleets of Iron Warriors, Night Lords, Word Bearers, and Alpha Legion were only hours away. However, impatiently, the Loyalist Primarchs already present decided not to wait any longer and started an attack. A barrage of macro cannons occupied anti-air defences, while the army shuttled to the surface. The Raven Guard took the right flank, the Salamanders the left, and the Iron Hands the centre. Immediately, the traitor Titans opened fire, killing hundreds of Space Marines, before retaliatory fire from tanks forced them to switch targets to Loyalist armoured forces. In the centre, the first line of the Death Guard sallied out to capitalise on the disorganisation of the Loyalist Space Marines caused by dropping from orbit and Titan fire. This attack was met with the fury of Ferrus Manus and his personal guard. The decimation of the traitors rallied the Iron Hands, who assailed the trenches, crushing defence lines one by one. Meanwhile, the assault on the left flank was spearheaded by Vulcan, who made use of his inherited from the Emperor trait, the Perpetuality. This power made him regenerate all wounds in a matter of seconds, making him essentially immortal. With the majority of traitor firepower focused on the Primarch, the Salamanders slowly advanced with minimal casualties. This steady advance was not keeping up with the center due to the appearance of the Mortarion and the 2 remaining members of the Mournival, whose presence improved the traitors' wavering morale and whose tactics stalled the Salamanders. On the right flank, the Raven Guard decided to bypass trenches with a jump pack assault. Upon landing, instead of a vulnerable back line, they were met with a World Eater ambush led by their Primarch Angra. In this melee combat, the traitors had an advantage. To make matters worse, in order to retreat, the Raven Guard had to split their forces into 2 parts. The first one was engaged in combat with the World Eaters, and the second was clearing the bypassed trenches. Of all the Loyalist forces, the centre alone continued its advance deep into traitor lines. All attempts to stop the Iron Hands failed, even the use of newly created Noise Marines, who were designed to combat Space Marines. They used as weapons chaos-augmented instruments that created sonic attacks capable of bypassing even the Terminator armor. Yet the Iron Hands had to leave more and more soldiers to guard their flanks, as both the Salamanders and Raven Guard were too far behind. With the Iron Hands spread so thin, the fight degenerated to squad combats and even duels in some parts of the front line, even though there were hundreds of thousands of combatants. In one such duel, the first captain of the Iron Hands was killed by his counterpart from the Emperor's Children Legion. Around 3 hours into the battle, the second wave arrived. 4 legions dropped onto the surface behind the Loyalists and immediately started fortifying the landing zone. The traitors, upon seeing over 300,000 fresh and ready Loyalists, decided to retreat to the fortress. Even the most bloodthirsty or demon-possessed traitors started fleeing. With victory at hand, the 3 exhausted Loyalist Primarchs started arguing over the next move. Vulcan and Corvus Corax wanted to retreat and regroup, while Ferrus Manus wanted to catch the retreating Primarchs, especially Fulgrim, who was now within his range. With no Primarch holding a higher position than the other, each legion followed the orders of its own commander. Ferrus Manus advanced to duel Fulgrim, while the Salamanders and the Raven Guard retreated. As Ferrus Manus reached Fulgrim and the 2 retreating legions were 100 meters from the reinforcing legions, a single flare was shot from the traitor command post. The reinforcements opened fire, killing hundreds of betrayed Loyalists in seconds. The second wave were all traitors. After the initial shock of this treachery passed, Corvus Corax and Vulcan couldn't agree on how to proceed. Vulcan wanted to break the line of the new forces to reach the shuttles and retreat to orbit, while Corax thought it was impossible. For him, the best strategy was to strike the weakest part of the line and break the encirclement. Escaping the battle was more important than escaping the planet. While this discussion continued, the duel between Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus came to an end, as Fulgrim beheaded his dear brother. Realizing what he had done and all the atrocities he beheaded his, the duel between Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus came to an end, as Fulgrim beheaded his dear brother. Realizing what he had done and all the atrocities he had committed, Fulgrim let a demon possess him to free himself from the pain. To complete the encirclement of the Loyalists, Horus's forces sallied out of the fortress, spearheaded by the traitor Imperial Army, whose role was one of meat shields, stopping the Iron Hands from joining with the rest of the Loyalists. Only those who protected the flanks managed to break away from combat, escaping the fate of being overrun and slaughtered. On the other side of the battlefield, the Salamanders, helped by remnants of the Iron Hands and a few of the Raven Guard, managed to reach the shuttles. Yet to their dismay, most of them were destroyed. A handful escaped, while Vulcan and the Salamanders dug in for their last stand. Wave after wave attacked, but the line held, despite being bombarded by artillery and Titan fire. Meanwhile, the Raven Guard were breaking through the ranks of word-bearers until Lorgar Aurelian crossed their line. Corax, skilled in fast and underhanded melee combat, had the upper hand against the priest Primarch of the word-bearers and defeated him. But before he could deliver a killing blow, Conrad Kurz, Primarch of the Night Lords, arrived. The two had similar roguish fighting styles, but Corax was exhausted and wounded. Conrad drove off the Raven Guard Primarch, and as a consequence, his legion, sending them back on the advancing forces of the Sons of Horus and World Eaters, led by their Primarchs. Eventually, the Raven Guard managed to escape the encirclement, but only with 4,000 Astartes from the 80,000 that had originally landed on Isstvan V's surface. The Salamanders had no such luck. Their position held firm against so many attacks that Perturabo, the Iron Warrior's Primarch, decided to end it once and for all. He launched a tactical nuke, annihilating every single surviving loyalist. With the battle ended, unbeknownst to all other traitors, Konrad Curze ventured into the nuclear crater to recover the regenerating body of Vulcan, taking him to his own ship as prisoner. The shuttles that managed to escape to orbit saw that the situation was the same here. The traitor fleet was annihilating unsuspecting loyalist vessels, with only a few escaping, but not before rescuing those who managed to reach orbit. This grievous defeat resulted in the Empire essentially losing 3 entire legions, with 4 more joining the ranks of Chaos. With 1 Primarch dead and 1 captured, reclaiming Corvus Corax was a task of utmost importance, especially to the few Raven Guard not present in the battle. A lone frigate was sent to covertly recover him and all survivors, but it would take weeks or even months to reach them. The 4,000 survivors had it rough, as most of the traitor legions stayed on Isstvan V to look for them. First, the survivors had hidden in the Highland Hills, but it was too close to the Urgal Plateau. The Iron Warriors' armoured column was heading in their direction. The Raven Guard prepared an ambush, hiding on both sides of the incoming tanks. The trap was sprung. The Raven Guard made a jump pack assault, rapidly closing the gap between the forces. Swiftly, the traitors were wiped out, but their position was now compromised. For the next month, the Raven Guard was constantly on the move, looking for any more survivors, yet they found none. Moving a force this large was attracting too much attention. Corvus ordered his forces to hide in Lurgan Ridge, while he alone was doing reconnaissance. This brought them an additional 2 months of hiding. But no one can hide forever, and eventually they were discovered. The World Eaters had found them. The traitors decided to bombard the survivors with artillery fire. The bombarded position was seen by the rescue frigate, managing to rescue 3,000 survivors and the Primarch moments before destruction. With the Battle of Isstvan V, now known as the Dropsite Massacre, concluded in a decisive traitor victory, the future looked grim for the Empire. 3 of their legions were destroyed, and 3 legions were sent to the edges of the galaxy. The only legions capable of interference were the Imperial Fists, whose forces were split in 2, the Space Wolves, exhausted from the burning of Prospero, and the White Scars, who still did not respond to any call to arms. Yet the road to Terra was a long one, and Horus wanted to be sure that nothing unforeseen would happen, especially since originally, in his plans, the Iron Hands and Ferrus Manus were on his side. The traitors were sent across the galaxy to fulfill many goals Horus gave them, while Horus himself prepared for the inevitable attack on Terra, the almost impregnable fortress. How will the galaxy react to civil war in the Imperium? Whose side will the trillions of citizens across the galaxy choose? How will the situation escalate? Find out in our next episode. Our series on the Warhammer 40k Horus Heresy will continue, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Wizards and Warriors channel, and we will catch you on the next one.
My gosh, such a tragedy. Just I'm not sure how they managed to like what did Lorgar coerce the other legions Primarchs to go by their sides to massacre the Salamanders, the Iron Hands, and the Raven Guard? Did they this and it's such a tragedy. It's such a tragedy. basically brothers in arms, thinking that they were close. They would have been able to push back against Horus and his men, only for to be betrayed from behind and to lose so many. And like a small contingent of the Raven Guard, the Salamanders, and the Iron Hands survived afterward. But after I believe after the Horus Heresy, there was still a broken legion and broken legions. My bad. And like it probably took years for them to even recover to full strength. And even in modern 40K, I think their numbers haven't fully recovered. Hence why there's not that many successor chapters from their lines. So this was just brutal fighting that was taking place, and caused so much pain. And like Fulgrim, like he took his own brother's life, and he succumbed to the whispers of a demon, and now his soul is lost. And his story is quite tragic too, because he was once noble, perfect, and was so much different. And then hubris, over time, slowly changed and corrupted him, and just fell into the sway of chaos, and just taking his own brother's life. Basically, it just ruined him. There's so many stories that come from this, and like it just everything culminates into something so massive, so hectic. And Horus wanted to split them up, wanted to break them apart. He killed one of the brothers. One of them was captured, and the other one on the run. And the other three are stuck on the eastern parts of the galaxy. And the other three, one of them being defending the homeworld, while the other two, one is wounded and the other one is basically waiting to see what happens. This whole thing is so crazy and so great at the same time. Like, you get so invested into like learning about the stories of all these different characters, and like what little piece led to this in this giant puzzle, until the final culmination of like the Horus Heresy and what happened in the end. And the Dropsite Massacre was just the pinnacle of, like, don't get me wrong, Isstvan 3 and the betrayal of the Loyalist legions, that was terrible and rough. What happened here is equally or more so worse, and it's such a tragedy. So, and I think if I'm not mistaken, if it wasn't for the Dropsite, it wasn't for the Battle of Isstvan 3 and Angron pushing himself to go onto the planet to go ham on the defenders, and buying 3 months of time between the response from the Imperium, they gave their lives essentially to be able to buy that time, to be able to get word out and convince the Emperor that, like, yes, Horus has gone traitor. We must bring him to heel, sort of situation. So yeah, it's just crazy and tragic at the same time. So anyway, that's it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I'll leave a link for Wizards Wars up here. Random video, plus subscribe if you want. And I'll put a link in the description for the original video so you can have a full watch yourself. And as always, thanks for watching. Romans, salute.
If you like Romans content and wish to see more, like and subscribe to continue to support the channel.